Good morning. This is a video on how to respond to an RFP electronically into BidBuy. So I am logged into my home screen through my vendor account. So this is exactly what it will look like for your home screen for your vendor account. You have a couple different options here. You have the news, vendor communications, bids, quotes, vendor performance. Now, really what's going to happen is you guys would receive a notification via email that your NIGP code that you have selected to be solicited for, there is a solicitation out there for you. So what you'll do is you'll go to bids and you'll have that bid number. So I'll click bids. Within the bids, there is a rolling, it's in chronological order, descending order of the bid number. So what you will do is, according to that email, you would go to the bid number that you were notified for. Now, for a high level view, just to get an idea of what we're going to do with RFPs, we're actually going to have two different RFP bids. One is going to be the technical proposal only, and one is going to be the pricing only. So in this instance, I was notified via my vendor account that bid number 11377. You can see here in the description, it'll say what it is, and then technical proposal only. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going in and attaching documents exactly the way you normally would if it was in a paper world. You would just be attaching the documents electronically. Okay. Now, as you have those different packets that you would have to submit in paper. So the pricing needs to be sealed and separate. So that is why we have a different bid number, which will be, you can see right below here, is pricing only. And the need there is that we need to have that pricing packet. It really acts as like a pricing lockbox. Okay. And so once the RFP process will continue per usual, they have the opening, then they go to evaluation, and only after the technical proposals have been evaluated will they open price. So that's really the reason why we have that two separate bids. So they will both be due on the same exact day and time, very similar to what would happen in the previous process. But you'll have to go in and submit to both bids. Okay, so first thing I'll do, I'm going to walk through the technical proposal only. Most of the activity is going to be taking place on the technical proposal only. All of the award information is going to take place on the technical proposal only. The only thing that's going to be happening on that pricing only bid is attaching your pricing. So let's open up our first bid, which is 11377. I click on the hyperlink here on the left. It's going to bring up all the general information about this particular RFP. I see that the bid opening date is up on the top right-hand side. Some of the information in the bulletin description. Now we're going to have a couple different, 4 or 5 different instances where we are providing instructions to you as the vendor to submit technical proposals only here or submit pricing here. This is our first touch point. In the bulletin description, this bid is only used to submit technical proposals and all required forms. Do not submit pricing on this bid. Electronic responses only. No paper responses will be accepted. Pricing will be attached in bid number 11375. So that's our first time that we are, our first instruction there. You're going to see our file attachments. We have our first question: can 2 people access the same vendor account at the same time? Yes, you can. You could have two different people logged in to your account, and we can maybe dive into that after the recording is done, but you actually can do that. So as a part of our file attachments, vendor instructions to submit technical proposals. Let's open that up. So here is some vendor instructions to submit technical proposals for offers for bid number 11377. So this provides some instruction within saying this is only for technical responses and other required documentation. Do not submit pricing on this bid. Pricing to be submitted under bid number, and it references the pricing bid. So when you create the quote, in the items tab, it's saying do not enter pricing here. Pricing will be submitted on bid 11375. In the attachments tab, you're going to attach the technical responses, the contract offer to the state, Forms A or Forms B, and any other required documentation per the solicitation document. And then a note, pricing must be submitted on 11375 before the bid opening date. At the bottom here, we just have some just provide some additional information about why we are doing the RFP process this way, as well as a link to the CPO notice. Okay, so that's our first attachment. Our second attachment is notice of an electronic submission only, and this is going out on all solicitations. It provides additional information as to why we are doing the RFP process this way. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Essentially, it's very similar to those notifications or the vendor instructions there. But you can read through that. It's going to talk about the request for proposals, require vendors to submit documents through 2 separate bid by bid numbers, and that's really what we're walking through now. So it allows that pricing to be locked. Okay, then you're going to have the RFP, the actual RFP document, as well as blank Forms A, blank Forms B that you can download, and you'll complete those documents as a part of your quote. So as I scroll down to the bottom, there's some additional information here in terms of, is there a BEP goal? In this case, this is just a test bid. I set the BEP goal for 20% and the VBP goal for 3%. As I scroll all the way down to the bottom, we will click Create Quote. So I select Create Quote. It's going to open up my new quote. And then what we're going to do is these tabs, starting from the General tab, working all the way to the right, and then we will end up on the Summary tab and submit our quote on the Summary tab. So on our General tab here, we don't need to do anything except for click Save and Continue. Okay, I'm going to click Save and Continue. Once I do that, now you can see that I actually have a quote number. Okay, so from here on out, if I went back to my home screen, I would see that I had a quote that was in the working status. So it's kind of in progress there. You can see the status here is in progress. And then I'm going to continue to move through my tabs. Now, I want to point out something here at the very bottom. If there is a BEP VBP goal and you are self-fulfilling the goal, please navigate to the subcontractor tab and enter your company name as the vendor fulfilling the goal. I want to point out that you can ignore this for right now. We're going to be working on either changing that information or that language or removing it altogether because most agencies aren't utilizing that subcontractors tab anyway. So I don't want to be, I want to be very clear that you don't have to go into that subcontractors tab. We are going to ignore that. So save and continue. We go to our items tab. Normally we would just go from left to right, but we're not going to be submitting pricing in our items tab, okay? So even if I click in the items tab here, we see that we have a vendor instruction, do not submit pricing on this bid. This bid is only used to submit technical proposals and the required documentation, okay? So you can skip right over that items tab, but even if you did click into it, it's going to tell you, hey, don't do that. You're not going to be submitting your pricing here, okay? Next tab is the questions tab. Now we're going to have a required question here, because we want to make sure that you acknowledge that this is going to be the technical proposal only and pricing will be submitted on a separate bid. So this is a required question. You can see here on the top left-hand corner, a quote validation error. Question 1 for header is mandatory and not answered. So it's not going to let you, the system will not let you submit this quote without going in and answering this question. So do you acknowledge that this bid is to submit the technical proposal only and pricing will be submitted on bid number 11375? You select, yes, I do acknowledge that, and then I save and continue. You're going to see that my error goes away, and now I can move to the next tab. The subcontractors tab, just like we talked about, we aren't utilizing this at this time. So you don't need to do that. So anything that has to do with your subcontracting, your utilization plan, or if you're self-fulfilling, all of that documentation is not changing. You would be attaching all of that information the way you normally would in paper. We're just going to add that in the attachments tab once we get there. Okay, so you don't have to put anything here on the subcontractors tab. Our next tab is the notes tab. Now this is just an internal sticky note for you, kind of like a yellow Post-it note. The state of Illinois cannot see this information, but it's there. If you wanted to make a note about your quote, you certainly can. Our next tab is the terms and conditions. Now this is going to be required. You're going to have to acknowledge the terms and conditions. And this is really just a hard stop within the BidBuy system. If you do actually take exceptions to any of the terms and conditions, that would be a part of your technical proposal anyway. So you don't need to go in and put in any of your exceptions here because you're already attaching those documents in your attachments tab. So I just want to be clear, this, while this is a new process for everyone, the documentation that you will be submitting is not going to change at all. It still will be the same exact documents that you normally would. It's just we're attaching them electronically rather than having them printed out and mailed in or dropped off in person. So accept the terms and conditions, yes, save and continue. And then I get to the attachments tab. Now the attachments tab, as you can see here, within 4 clicks or so, we're at the attachments tab. Now this is really where most of your activity is going to take place because there's going to be multiple attachments. So I click on attachments. What I'm going to do is add file. When I click add file, now I'm going to go in and choose file. So you add file, choose file. It's going to go into my computer and I can go in and grab my technical proposal that I had already completed. So we'll go into downloads here. We'll say that this is my RFP. That's my technical response. And one note here about this confidential, we're in the training environment. In the production environment, whenever you attach any documents to your quote, it's going to automatically mark it confidential. So you're not going to have to click that little checkbox there, but you want to ensure that that is clicked confidential. I click save and exit. Now you can see that I've attached my technical response. If you have the title, you don't necessarily have to put in the description here. I just did that because you can, if you would like, to put in what that description is for that document. You can see that it's marked confidential. It was attached by me on the date. Now, if I attach something and I want to delete it, I can select the delete box and then click save and continue. So a couple notes about attaching documents here. Normally we would have those different packets. You don't have to organize the packets. It's not required to order the packets in the same way. You're just going to be putting in all that documentation. Of course, you wouldn't be putting in the pricing packet because that's going to be going to another bid. But that's a question we've had a lot is, do we need to label, packet 1, packet 3, packet 4, packet 5? You do not have to do that. You're just putting in the documents. Another option is, of course, you can put in all of your documentation. You can attach them one by one if you would like. You certainly can do a zip file as well. So if you want to add all, have all your different packets that you would put in, you could put that in one zip file and have one attachment in BidBuy, and there is no size limit to that as well. Okay. One question: Can we attach more than one document as we complete them, or do they need to be in one upload? No, you can absolutely do that at any time. As long as I select save and continue, I can go back and move around and come back to it, and all your documents will be there. So this isn't a one-stop shop type of transaction where you have to put everything at once. You could go in and have your forms A, forms B, but let's say you're still working on your technical response. So I'm going to go in. From a procurement requirement standpoint, I know that I'm in the IPG. I have an active registration in the IPG. I'm going to add my forms B. Forms B. Save and exit. But maybe I'm not ready to put in my technical response yet because the team's still working on that. You can have all that other information. Maybe I have my technical response ready, but I'm still working on my BEP utilization plan or any other document. As long as you attach and submit your quote prior to the bid opening time and date, you are good to go. Okay, so any of your other documentation that would have to be in there, and you're just going to look at the solicitation to see all the other required documentation. And then you get to the summary tab. I scroll down to the bottom. I can see all of my attachments. I acknowledge that required question, and then I submit quote. Okay, it's going to say, are you sure you want to submit the quote? Yes, I am sure. And now you can see the status on the right-hand side is we have been submitted. So now, if I go back to the home screen, another thing is I just received an email notification that once I submitted, that I have submitted a quote. You'll receive the same exact notification when you submit. So now, if I want to go back and I think, I'm thinking about it and I go, oh, you know what? I want to change something, or I want to go back and take a look at my quote. It lives in the quotes. Or if I go back to the bids, I can see for that technical proposal, I have links to my quotes over here. I have multiple quotes here because I did a training on this last week as well. So you can find it there, as well as in the quotes tab. You have different kind of silos here. You have your informal, your working, submitted quotes, or withdrawn quotes. So this would live in my submitted quotes. So these are all the quotes that I had submitted. So you can see here as a part of this bid, hyperlinks to the bid, as well as it hyperlinks to my quote. So let's go back and let's talk about maybe I want to withdraw my quote and change something. I can go into my quote in the summary tab, because this is still in that submitted status. If I want to withdraw, I have the option to do so. I can click withdraw. Are you sure you want to withdraw this quote? And now you can see that the status is, over on the right-hand side, is now withdrawn. So if I went back to my home screen, now this quote is living in the quotes, still in the quotes tab, but now it's in the withdrawn. So it just organizes all your quotes here under that quotes header tab. So let's say, you know what, I want to go back into this withdrawn. I want to open it back up and continue to work on it. I go to the summary tab. And the status is withdrawn. I want to reopen the quote, which is going to now move this back into in progress status. So now this quote is living in the working tab of our quote. So if I go back to my home screen here and quotes, you're going to see that it's living in the working tab here. Okay, so that's how that quotes header tab works. Is it just kind of that way it's easy access for you to find your quotes if you know if it's been submitted already or if it's something that you're working on. So for instance, if say I had started a quote and I just put in one attachment or so, and then I start working on something else, I come back to it, it's going to be living in this working tab here. So let's go back to this quote. You acknowledge that this quote has not been submitted. Once acknowledged, you may finish the quote and submit it for consideration. So yes, I'm acknowledging, yes, I have not submitted this yet. It opens back up and I'm in that in progress status. So I could do, maybe I needed to go out and add another attachment. I can do whatever I needed to do. I scroll back down to the bottom of the summary tab and submit my quote. Okay, so assuming you weren't necessarily submitting or submitting and then withdrawing and then resubmitting, it's pretty straightforward in terms of there's only a couple clicks and then you're into your attachments tab and attaching your documents. Once again, that can be one large zip file that has all of your documents. You can pepper your documents in one at a time throughout any span of time. It's just remember that you have to have that click submit quote prior to the bid opening date and time. Okay, so now we've checked off the technical proposal only. Let's go to the pricing only bid and submit our pricing. So once again, we go to that home screen, we go to our bids tab. We're going to scroll down through our bid. If there was more, of course, you can click view more here if I needed to. Mine just happens to be at the top there. But if you click view more, you scroll down, you can see how these bid numbers are in descending order. So you're just going to be looking for that bid number. Over here on the middle, I'm looking for this pricing only bid because I would have been notified for this as well. I'm going to open up from this screen. I can either open up the bid and click create quote, or I can create a new quote over here on the right hand side. I can just click create quote, and now I'm starting a new quote. So this is a very similar situation. Within only a couple clicks, I'm going to be into my attachments tab. There's not going to be as much activity on this bid, right? Because all we're doing for this bid is, answering the question, acknowledging terms and conditions, and then attaching the pricing document. So really, this one will take a lot less time. Save and continue on the general tab, which starts and gives us a quote number. I have my errors at the top left-hand side that are not going to allow me to submit this quote without taking care of that. In the items tab, we can ignore it because we're not adding anything here, but if you happen to click on it, we do have vendor instructions there saying do not enter pricing here. Attach the pricing document in the attachments tab. Okay, we have our questions. We're going to have a similar required question here as we did on the technical proposal only it's just kind of vice versa. It's saying, do you acknowledge that this bid is to submit pricing only? The technical proposal in all required forms, and it refers back to the other technical bid. I click yes, save and continue. Remember, we are ignoring the subcontractors tab. The notes tab is there if you want to utilize it. Once again, the state cannot see that information. Terms and conditions. I have to accept the terms and conditions. As a reminder, if you do take exceptions to the bid, that's going to be a part of your documentation anyway. You don't have to input this information within BidBuy. It's just a system hard stop. Save and continue. I'm into my attachments, and then I'm going to go in and attach my pricing. You won't have to, you don't need to go in and attach all those other technical proposals in here. You just want to add that pricing. Because remember, this bid is just there as essentially it's acting as that sealed packet. So I'll go in add file, choose file, and then I didn't have a previous pricing document made, so I'm just going to grab this document, and this is our pricing. Once again, that confidential box will automatically be checked, so you don't have to do that. But within the training environment, I just want to check that. You can see that I have attached my pricing document. It is marked confidential, and then it shows who is attached by and the attached date. If I'm happy with that, I can move on. At any point, you could have started this. Maybe I have my pricing, and then I kind of let it sit here this way prior to the bid opening date. You can always, because this is in progress status, everything is staying the same. As long as I go in and attach my pricing and click submit quote prior to the bid opening date and time, then you are good. So I'm happy with my pricing. I submit my quote. Are you sure you want to submit a quote? Yes. Now it's moved into that submitted status. And I just received another notification that I had submitted a quote to bid 11375. Once again, if I needed to submit or I needed to withdraw for any reason, I wanted to change my pricing, I have that option now. I can go back in and withdraw the quote, similar to what I just showed you on that technical proposal. Okay, I think that covers everything for the technical and the pricing bid only. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording now, and then we'll answer some questions.